8 years, 8 days, and got redeemed on the 8th day of Hungary. Amen. It's unbelievable.
It's working now, Pinchas?
חיים בן?
When we do the share,
I recorded everything. You want to have it, I'll send it to you.
No, I got it back.
What do you say the name of Chaim?
Chaim ben Avram Levi.
Ultimately, back to the physical body.
Immediately.
See up now.
חיים וברוכה.
So I'm just going to try and give a brief picture of what the Rebbe says in the main Malchus Shir Beneget or Shabbos Parshas Vayigash, because it carries a most amazing message, which has a certain link, I believe, with everything that's happening now and going on now. And that is that when we first look at Parshas Vayigash, it would appear that Yosef is like the main beit, he's the main mashbir, and he's Yosef HaTzadik. I mean, with all the unbelievable miles that Yosef HaTzadik has. And Yehuda would appear to be like in the lower situation, that he's having to come and ask Yosef to help him out. But that would tend to indicate that the Ika, what we call in Lashon Kodesh, Toikev, here, the Ika power, expressive power here is in the hands of Yosef. And particularly that Yosef, he's the one that gives all the food, and he's the one that's running the whole country, and all the other countries are all coming to him, and they're all dependent on him. So it would seem that he's the main expressive figure in the whole India. And Yehuda's like, in that regard, it's something of a play-down type of situation. He's having fun. So the Rebbe said, when you think about it and you examine it a bit more carefully, and you see it's not quite that way. Because you see that Yosef was the Mishnah Melech. He was, like he says, Kamecha Kafarei, and according to one of the Pirushim in Rashi, you're like Parei, in other words, that he saw him to have the divine, the royal power was in the hands of Yosef. And yet, nonetheless, Rashi also brings us, brought down in the Medrashim, that Yehuda went to Yosef with a starkheit, and he said, if you don't listen to what I'm going to say, then I'm really going to express myself in a way that might not be so pleasant, In other words, there was not just an empty threat, but there was a definite hint that he has very powerful powers and he's prepared to use them. All of which, if he was like facing a big king who was ruling over a whole number of countries, and he was asking, what's he doing talking with such a, what might almost be called a chutzpah, in front of the king. And the Rebbe is married with that we see that later, who actually gave them all the places in Goshen, and who looked after them, and who was there with Taka Yosef. So it all comes from Yosef. How come Yehuda such a, and then at the end of the parasha, it's written that they multiplied tremendously, and I believe it all indicates a tremendous expansion and elevation, almost like after Yosef gave what they did, but then they grew all on their own, independently in a way of what Yosef gave them. And Ramela says the Rebbe, we have to say that even though it would appear that Yehuda is the underworld, to use the expression, rather unfortunate expression in English, the underdog. He's like the lower. The truth is that if you study it carefully, you'll see that there's a tremendous power coming from Yehuda. And to the point where that, as it were, somehow or another, makes Yosef dependent in Yehuda. So the Rebbe says that the absolutely remarkable thing is that the Haftorah of Parshas Vayigash talks about the Geulah, talks about what's going to be the matzah when Mashiach will come. And it's written over there that Hashem says to Yecheskel, Anovi, that he should take eight representing Yosef and eight representing Yehuda, and that will represent Malchus Yisrael and Malchus Yehuda, and he should join them together to indicate the return to union of the Malchus, not the split in the Malchus the way it was so many generations. That's number one. Number two, you must make sure that Malchus Yehuda will be over when you hold the two eightim. The one on the top will be Malchus Yehuda. So here we see in the Haftarah open indication that Yehuda is really L'mayla mi Yosef. So how does that get together? Yosef is the Yom from Geula, and Yehuda is the Yom from Tefillah. How does that get together? And yet, nonetheless, there's another indication of that before they actually arrived in Mitzrayim and set up home, it's written that Yaakov Avinu sent Yehuda in front of him to establish and show how everything should be done, and to set up a base medrash according to the second pshat in Rashi and everything. So what do you need Yehuda here? Well, you got Yosef, and he's the Belabos of everybody, and he's in charge of the whole country. Just tell Yosef to give us the best possible. Elamai, that there can't be a solving of the Jewish situation. If not, Yehuda will first of all give the inspiration. If he will give the inspiration, then everything that Yosef will give will have its proper fulfillment. In other words, Yosef's taken the giver over the real fulfiller, and the real finding of the emes hakavon is Yehuda. So I find that really pretty remarkable. So the Rebbe says that deep in what looks to be a malchus run by Yosef, the real controller and the real fixer of genuine policy is Yehuda. And ultimately, he's going to be the one that's on top.
Mashiach.
The Geula, Yehuda is going to be on top.
Mashiach.
In the Geula Shleima, that's what it's going to be. And then it finishes by saying, but David Avdi Nosi Aleihim. But David Avdi Melech Aleihim Le'olam. But David is Yehuda. David is Yehuda. But David Avdi Melech Aleihim Le'olam. And before that, but David Avdi Nosi Lohem. Yes. But what's all this? So the Rebbe says that Beklal, we can compare the whole situation to this Manakolim. The Yidden are also dependent in other royal figures and other leading political figures in the different countries where they're in Golas. And they're Jewish leaders. And so the Rebbe says that there's two ways that you can approach the fact that you're under the so-called auspices of the Goyim, and you need to act in a way that you're sort of part of the country. The Rebbe says two ways. One is that even though you're interested in Jewish identity, you want to make sure that Jewish identity is preserved, but you're always very anxious to do everything the right way, that the high boss will be happy, and you try to make it that there won't be any sort of sharp corners anywhere, and nobody's going to get tough with anybody. And hopefully in Badaki Sholem or Badaki Noam, which is a good thing, everybody will be satisfied, including it. That's one way. The second way, the Rebbe says, there's a Yid goes, what I take you, that he is Malchat Chila, even though he's not going to be basely improper to the leaders, but he's going to make them understand that ultimately Yidden have their own leadership and they don't really need him. And just out of the courtesy and the requirement of Allah, they're asking him, but really Hashem is the one, and they're Malachatchila right over what the Chatchila Riba is putting out small. So the Rebbe said, where do we find, and that was Yehuda. And therefore Yehuda went to Yosef. He said, listen man, you're the one in charge, so out of the basic requirements of the situation, I'm approaching you, but you should realize I'm not really approaching you. I got my own koyach, I'm coming from a koyach, Eliam B'Yeza. I'm telling you what I want, and Ocham Vei if we don't get it. So that was the implication. So the Rebbe said, where do we learn that from? We learn it from Purim. We learn from Purim. That Mordechai Yehudi, when he found out about the Gezerah, Mordechai should have straight away, he he was in the Geshar HaMelech and he was in a political situation, he should have immediately run to all the politicians and said, listen, we're Yidden and we're very important to the whole country, to the whole kingdom here, and what are you doing with us? And he should have tried lobbying to get political backing to oppose the Gezerah of Haman. Obviously, the Rebbe, we find he didn't do that for club. First of all, he ran out into the street and he made a whole hullabaloo that you have to do tshuva. First of all, and foremost, you have to put on sackcloth and everything. You have to go out in the street and you have to shrei Yidden, do tshuva. But that's a very, how do you call it, unpolitical and undiplomatic approach to go out and dress up in sackcloth in the middle of the street and shrei the Yidden about tshuva. What the goyim don't even know what tshuva means. They're wasting from going. Yeah, nonetheless, that's what he says, Mordechai. And then after that, what does he do? He goes back to, his place there near the Shara Melech, and all of a sudden the king has told Haman that everybody should bow down to him. And all of a sudden Mordechai doesn't bow down. And so the Rebbe said, when you think about it, well, that was not only Masukin for Mordechai, that he doesn't bow down to Haman. Who knows what Haman might do to him? It's Masukin for all the Jewish people, because Haman wants to get at Yidden anyway, and if he sees that Mordechai, their leader, is not bowing down to him, well, that's going to make it worse. It's going to add petrol to the fire and be mamish masakin Yidden. So the Rebbe said, how come Mordechai had such a breitkeit to do such a thing? Yeah? And yet, nonetheless, we see that even though Haman found out who Mordechai was, he was unable to really do anything about it. On the contrary, yeah, he had his nafila through that. And so the Rebbe brings it even better. That when Achashverosh made the Suda, then Mordechai said he's prepared to come to the Suda, but he wants kosher wine. If he doesn't have kosher wine, then he's not coming to the Suda. So it's written that, it's written that Achashverosh did kirutzain ishvo ish. He did according to Haman, that Haman didn't care what sort of wine, as long as it was good wine. And also that you have to have strictly kosher wine for the Yidden. He did according to what Mordechai. So the Rebbe said Mordechai and Haman are two opposites, absolute opposites. And yet nonetheless, a typish like Achashverosh, he realized that he's got to take two opposites into account here, because you're dealing with Yidden. And if you're dealing with Yidden, you have to go to extreme extent even to unite two opposites. And you got to give, even though the whole Suda is treif in the world, most terribly treif, you have to provide for Yidden Ravlandas extra. And you have to provide them in a way that Mordechai will be pleased. And Mordechai will say, oh yeah, that's a good extra. Okay, my Yidlach will eat and I'll also Ichloi Chesem. You follow? In other words, Achashverosh had to do the impossible in order to make Mordechai pleased. So that's also the question, who is Mordechai after all? Me, who is Who is the balabas of the country, Achashverosh or Mordechai? So the real balabas is Mordechai. That's what the Rebbe said. Of Amira, that is the ultimate indication of how Jewish problems have to be approached in the Zman HaKodesh. You have to, Melachatchila, be decent to everybody. You don't insult anybody. You don't throw a cream cake in somebody's face. Or, you don't have to do anything. But you just indicate that you're not taking any no for an answer. You're going. And they say with the Reb Marash, the whole concept of Lechatchila Riva, the Reb Marash used to live that way. If he ever need to see one of the big ministers in Petersburg, he would just go straight down there. He would have an appointment or and he would walk up into the office. And he'd walk past the secretary, and the secretary would say, wait a minute, sir, who are you? And he would say, I am the Rabbeinu Schneerson. So must say, you don't know about me, you must know who I am, I'm Rabbeinu Shalom. In the meantime, he's already inside the office, and the Tsar had no bread but to talk with him. That's his word. Of Amela, we see that where there's a toikev on the part of Yehuda, ultimately, he is really the Balabad. You know? So the Rebbe said that's the message of the whole thing. The Derech Parshas, that's the message of this whole inter-reaction and this whole dialogue between Yehuda and Yosef, and Yehuda going down, and he establishing where they're going to settle, how they're going to do it. Everything has to be ultimately according to what Yehuda wants. And that's why Derech Hagav, or that's why not Derech Hagav, but importantly, that's why all Yidden are called in the Megillah Yehudim. They're called Yehudim. And Mordechai is not from, he's not necessarily from Shevet Yehuda, he's from Shevet Benjamin. And yet nonetheless he calls himself Mordechai Yehudi. Why? Because Yehudi is from Rosh Yehuda. In other words, Mordechai added himself the whole etiquette in a building of Yehudi. Yes, he added himself Yehuda. Of Amela, Vayigash Yehuda is really the toikev of Yehuda, not of Yehuda. Therefore, Moshiach Amiti will be Davke from Yehuda, Davke Dori. And he will Davke be Lamaila, because be sure Eliot is Lamaila Miyasa. Even though we're not belittling, we're not trying any way to belittle the greatness of Yehuda. Yehuda is unbelievably great. But in these inyonim, Yehuda is even greater. You follow? And that's the emes of Pshat, by the way. It's brought down in some of our Bariga, but that's the emes of Pshat of Smichas Geula L'Tfila. It's the other way around. It's Smichas Tfila L'Geula. Yosef was sitting where he was, and Yehuda, he went to Yosef. And so Yehuda is Tfila. So L'chira, Smichas Tfila L'Geula. Not Smichas, Yosef didn't go to Yehuda. So the Rebbe said, by indicating his Shur Shamiti, Yehuda made it in such a way that really Yosef was going to him. That really it's Smichas Geula L'Tfila. And how do you achieve that? That really Yosef went to him. Yosef became bottled to him. And really Yosef went to him, even though he went to Yosef. But really what it means is that Yosef came to him. And that's the Indian of Smichas Geula L'Tfila. That really Yosef came to Mitzadis Shur Sha'elia. That's what happens in all Inyonim, where you didn't take a stand with a simplicity and a Parshas of a Parshas which is based on their Shurish Elyon and their Shurish Amiti, and Alidei Dinim and Hoidoa and Emuna Peshuta with Tekiva. But it's brought next week's Parsha in Teruah. The Alter Rebbe talks about the milas of Yehuda. Where you go with that, then automatically everybody comes your way. And that is the ultimate message of how it has to be done. And that's what we see in America. The Rebbe, he wasn't Lapel, the president of America, the Rebbe. Ultimately, the presidents of America have done what the Rebbe said. With the whole Yom HaChinuch and the whole Yud Aleph Nisan and all of the president, he came around and he signed what the Rebbe wanted. Now look what's happening now. Well, this Trump guy, he is giving over the values that the Rebbe represented. He's giving over the values that the Rebbe represented. because he has a shitta. He's not stomach goylem. He's trying to break the Arab stranglehold on the world. The Arabs have been running the world unjustly and bloodsheddedly and terribly for over a decade and a half now, maybe 2 decades, with terror, with bloodshed and with slaughtering human beings. And the time has come before Moshiach, well, that's got to stop. And things have to go back to tzedek v'yosher. Things have to go back to normal justice, a normal upright conduct on the part of human. That's what he said in one of his speeches. And that's what he wants to bring about. And that's why he freed Rupashkin, because he schmacked that there's some sort of injustice here. There's something, it's not, and that's what the Rebbe demands of him, exactly. Tzedek v'yosher, and your in is to be lahokim ha'olam, or even she said ha'olam masuda, according to proper human values. That's what a world leader is supposed to do. And that's what the Rebbe said many times. And that's exactly what's happening now. And that's why he had the gumption to free Rubashkin. And Mashenkin, the one before, he kowtowed to the Arabs. You know, there's a whole Eisenhower with this Obama. They say they found that he covered up some whole business with the Hezbollah. Some whole Eisenhower. In other words, he was up to no good.
Obama.
For what? Because he believed in kowtowing to the Arabs. You follow? And here, you got a president that he wants to break this whole stranglehold on the world, and he's only playing. He may sound a little bit ever so slightly sort of, ever so slightly comical, but he really means, he means a basic series of values. Yeah, I mean everybody's got his particular mind. I'm not saying the previous guy was just who knows what, but he unfortunately he fell into what all world leaders. It's not just in America; it's all through the world that they've all kowtowed to terrorism. You follow? They've all given in to terrorism, and they've let themselves be bossed around, and now most of them very sincerely regret it. But it's already too late. They're already in the hands of these guys. So he's working to try and free the world from that stranglehold. And that's, in that regard, he is like carrying out the Rebbe's line. So we see that really all these days, including Hay Tevas and Be'ikah, Hay Tevas, and now today, which is pretty much close to Hay Tevas, they all indicate this koyach of the Rebbe to bring the world back to the way it was meant. It wasn't meant to be a world of bloodshed and terrorism and all sorts. It was meant to be a world where there's a community of creative beings, and they have to live together. That's a Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noah. That there has to be a basic series of rules. And from what I understand, throughout the world, whole groups of people are coming over to the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noah. And they're all beginning to realize that this is the way to establish a world community and a world interacting community in a normal, respectful and understanding way. Every nation has got its particular mila. Why shouldn't one nation appreciate and admire the Zweite? Why should there be all this hatred and war and terrorism and people trying to get what they want through terrible methods, It shouldn't be like that. And the Alter Rebbe says in Perek Lamed Vov that the whole Indian of Yemois HaMashiach, well, that's what the Eibusha meant by Reishis HaBriyah. So what is it, Yemosha Mashiach? Kulam Shechem Echad. Everybody together will serve the Eivishter of Amela. The Eivishter will unite everybody, that they will be all together as a whole human community. It's just that their ultimate binding and their ultimate, belief and their ultimate moral connection will be with the Kodesh Baruch Hu.
Amen.
But it'll all come through the medium of the Sheva Mitzvah B'nai Noah.
Amen.
It's very interesting. Davke Holiday Noah, but Noah, in many of the Maimar Chazal find a little bit fault with Noah. He didn't this and he didn't that. But so, Noah was a very amazing person. He held out. A generation was pretty tough going. And nonetheless, he went ahead faithfully with his task, and he brought, the whole Hampshire of all the generations afterwards. It all goes back to him. Yeah. And so therefore, it's brought down in our sages that korban, or those korbanos with Noach offered up, and they came out of a very, very high, because Noach achieved a lot. He achieved an unbelievable level, which is common to the whole inner Mesiras Nefesh. And Hashem should know that type of culture should seep into the world, and people should hate bloodshed. It's a terrible thing. It should be sanui, they kol b'nei adam. Why should people want to shissen and hargen and one the other? It just doesn't make any sense. It's a horrible and terrible thing. So my feeling is that he has set himself a goal that he's going to try and fight that. Pliny doesn't like it, too bad about that. He's decided that he's got to be, in that regard, he's got to be a bit tough. You follow? And in that regard, he is carrying out what the Rebbe would have wanted of a world leader. You follow? Does it in a good way. Avamira Hei Tevas represents how even the Goyish court and every Goyim, they recognize the greatness of the Frierdiker Rebbe, Chassidim, and ultimately of a Kodesh Baruch Hu, and Sforim, like the Rebbe says here, that your Sforim are all essentially part of those who represent Hashem. The Sforim are an essential part of them. You can't separate them. And all the Sforim need one the other, and they all belong in the same place. And it was Goyim who paskin that, not Yidden. And the Rebbe knew that only if he got the Goyish federal court to paskin, that these other guys would listen, otherwise they would dry out. You follow? The Rebbe took an unbelievably courageous step of going to the Goyish court. And he was unbelievably successful that the Goyish court of the judges paskin everything according to Pnimis HaTorah, Ada Oisa Achron, which means that that's a tremendous turn in the whole history of events. The Goyish mentality and the whole representation of Sheva Mitzvahs being there, the Koyach HaDinim, that it is, that's one of the mitzvahs. That's the court, the federal court is one of those mitzvahs. They kept that in a fair way. They were able to come to recognize the truth, Al Peter. Goyim. Of Amir, that's a tremendous move in the right direction. And Yesh Loima, that's what's happening now with this whole thing with Rabashki. That there were some judges that they wanted to go back the other way. They wanted to go back into the way of hatred and perverting the proper rule of proper justice and understanding of law. And now there's been a movement against that in a massive way. And you can see people don't want a world like that anymore. Look at all these people dancing all over the world, you understand? And the lawyer that helped him was also a guy Domani. Was he a Yid, the lawyer?
One of them was a Yid.
Huh?
Nate Lewin.
He was a Yid?
One of them was a Yid. There were some that were not Jewish.
Yeah.
Maybe
There's more than one.
It's hard to find a non-Jewish.
They're bringing the world to recognize that you can't do things that way. You can't victimize a human being in the most terrible way, all because of some thing which is called hatred, or who knows what it's called. And the same with bloodshed, it's even worse. Hashem Shadel, we're living in a very great moment. In my opinion, it's a very elevated moment, a very great moment. And we're seeing that they're talking at the Sforim, and we're seeing that they're talking of Tzedek B'Yosha, and we're seeing that they're talking of the Rebbe, Melech HaMashiach.
For Mamish.
Avamela, they're talking of Elikus and HaKadosh Baruch Hu, of Kol HaBriya Kula.
You now.
I said,
Gafni, from Hey Tavis, it seemed already in Hey Tavis, from the Indian with the Rebbe, that it was more in line with the Haftorah of Vayigash than with the Parsha. It showed that Yehuda, like in the Gula, is already above from Yosef. Because the Goyish court, the Rebbe's lawyers told him not to do it. They said, no, you have to say she was crazy. It's the only way to undo it. There's a will. The Rebbe said, no, we go according, and they what? It's crazy. It's mamish. Yeah.
Nachon Mod. And the Rebbe even spoke at several meetings with the lawyers about his own achievements. The Rebbe Mamish made it clear that his greatness was playing a key part in the whole thing. Yeah. In a way, they've never heard the Rebbe speak that way. Nobody ever heard that, ever. That the Rebbe would speak about, I've achieved this and that. Nobody ever heard it. Here it all came out, But this is it. And he said, this is the pitch line.
We're already through the door.
Chaim ben Avram Alevi, it's your side.
So the Neshama should have a Yerida.
Amen. And he's a
The
Tzedek.
Neshama should come down into this world.
He's a Tzedek from the Alter Rebbe.
Thank you.
Yeah, he's good. It's
What are you telling me?
from one of the sons of the
One of
Alter
the,
Rebbe. The sons of the
branches.
Alter Rebbe, yeah.
Wow. Thank you. So you got yourself into a Yichus involvement here, I see.
It's something, yeah.
Good for you, man. It certainly can't do any harm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing. Good, l'chaim, guys. L'chaim. Yeah, l'chaim.
Chaim. Shiach now.
Amen.
So this is it. Gilkirk, Baruch Hashem, the Rebbe is running the show, believe me, to use the homely expression. And we shouldn't think that we don't have to whom to approach. It's almost amazing. I went to a bris today by Moshe Sperling. So he and his wife weren't sure what to call the children. So he wrote into the Igor Squares. He wrote, and he got the most amazingly, he printed up a few copies of it, gave it out at the press. It was a letter from the Rebbe to one of the Rabboni Abachatzir. I get confused. There's Meir, there's Baba Sali, and there's this one. But one of the big Rabboni Abachatzir, and the Rebbe calls him amazing titles. And he happens to be the father of the young Rabbi Abachatzir in Nahariya, the big people go to him, all sorts of things. David Abachatzir, Rabbi David in Nahariya. He's the father of him. So the Rebbe writes to him as certain things that he must have either asked the Rebbe or the Rebbe thought he should tell him. And then the Rebbe says, Simchosi Gedela Lishmoya Hoilodas B'nai. The Rebbe writes, yeah, tremendously full of ושמחתי עוד יותר שאתה והרבנית החליטו לקרוא לזה דוד חי. That's his name is David Chai. And Subi Vishal Teva, David's a very elevated name. And then he brings a few things about David, and so their eyes jumped out on stalks. So, he asked me on the phone, what did I think about that? I said, this is absolutely mind-boggling, So I said, I'm not allowed to tell you what you should do about a name. The Rebbe doesn't allow that, but I mean, I think you got it pretty clear. So, you know what they called it? They called him David Chaim. David Chaim. So it was because his wife said that Chai is especially his father's name. Chai, David Chai, and she feels a little bit sort of, strange calling her child that he's going to be mixing around with Ashkenazim very strongly. So she said, why don't we call him Chaim instead of Chai? So they called him David Chaim.
The outside today is Chaim.
So he said to me, what do you think about that, Rav Gafni? So I said, listen, Chai is a Shem HaToyah. It describes something. It's literally. Chaim is the Shem HaEtzem. That's a very high, that's the Etzem meaning of Chaim. Couldn't be better. So be David Chaim. So he asked me, what do I think about David? So I said, it's written in the Hashanas. On Hashana Rabbah, we say, Kol Mavasu V'Oima, Hu David Ba'atzmai. That Moshiach is going to be David, Mamish, David, a man of David is Moshiach. Who David Ba'atzmai? It's all series of Birunim and Svarim. If it's really David Amelo, it's based David. The Rebbe ourselves got a whole beer about that. And then there's a whole inyan about in Derek Mitzvah that there's also part of Nishmas Moshe Rabbeinu here, etc., etc. A whole inyan. Of in Hoshana Rabbah, it's written, Hu David Ba'atzmai, that Moshiach is going to be Mami David. It's just that he's David united with another Guf and another Neshama, but it's David Kipshutai. So I said, Kumtais, that David and Chaim are both Shemus Etem. So he was very happy with that. So he called him David Chaim. So that just shows you how people with a passion, with a pshita, he just wrote a letter, his wife signed the letter, and they just put it, they did it with a simplicity, with pshita. Look at what they got, they got. So, Baruch Hashem, Igros Cages also came out of Hay Tables. Around about that time, the Rebbe said they should print of all of his Igros Cages. It's also linked with the same general move towards the victory at the Sfarim. Igros Cages. Baruch Hashem, to Benji, in the old South African vernacular, they say the Rebbe is running the show. No. As a matter, have a good evening, gentlemen.
Mashiach,